I guess the challenge when you're sort of holding so many countries culpable is, who are the good guys, and how do you actually maintain that sort of standard for who to praise? Because
the good guys are
bad,
people. The good guys are individuals. The good guys are the men and women and children in the world. I mean, the governments are an imperfect way for us to coordinate and operate societies at scale. And we need to design ways to hold them accountable and to push for reforms when they do bad things. Democratic societies are much better at this. In the United States, which again has done many horrible things, has a horrible prison system, has invaded other countries, I could go on and on. The point is, has systematic racism. The point is, in America, I have a free press, I have property rights, I have due process, I have an independent judiciary, tens of thousands of nonprofits I can donate to sue the US government, et cetera, et cetera. I can make a living getting rich, making fun of the president in my country. Doesn't mean my country doesn't do bad things, but this structure of accountability and freedom really does not exist for 4.3 billion people, and 53% of the world's population lives under an authoritarian regime. So that's across 90 plus countries, where they cannot go on TV and make fun of the president. They don't have real property rights. There is no Supreme Court that's going to protect them against the state, essentially. They have no New York Times. They can't whistleblow without getting killed. So at HRF, I've studied just how this phenomenon of authoritarianism and how dangerous it is and how problematic it is, simply because it removes the usual tools that citizens would use to achieve reform or to push for a better society in a peaceful way. The dictators take that away from people. So, through all of my work, I've watched how difficult it is to change societies inside dictatorships and inside authoritarian regimes. And we've come to the conclusion that technology is really key. Like when it comes to North Korea, what are you going to do? Well, are you going to negotiate with the Kim regime? They're going to take advantage of you. What we realized would making a bigger impact was actually smuggling flash drives of outside movies and content into North Korea so people could educate themselves and make their own decisions. This was built off of our work in Cuba. So at the end of the day, a lot of technology can be incredibly empowering for people.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about, before we just get too deep into the technology, I was curious, what is the best governance model? Because you said that government generally is an imperfect way. I'm assuming you also think that Western governments are imperfect. So how do you restructure governance in the West and beyond? It's an interesting question. Technology plays a part, but how do you do it? Because I guess there's degrees of problems, right?
Yeah, look, liberal democracy is the least bad of all the options. Like it is what we have, and it works really well for many countries. I think that I don't want to lose sight of the fact that most people that I work with would sacrifice everything to have like 1% of the freedoms that Norwegians have. Okay, so I want to make it really clear that I'm not trying to draw any moral equivalences here. Like liberal democracies are the best we have. They are not perfect. They continue to sell weapons to dictators. They continue to manipulate the world's economic system. They are not innocent, but they are way better than a dictatorship. That's where I come from, at least. I think no one wants to live under a strong man. I don't believe in this idea that like people, they want this like dictator to rule over them and like just keep things sort of stable. I think that's a lie. So I think that everybody wants to have a little freedom and ability to express themselves.
Well, everybody wants to have freedom, but there has been this trend across Europe and other places over the last few decades with the rise of kind of right-wing parties with at least some practices and some ideologies that are going in different directions, arguably. What do you make of that? Because there was this idea that democracy had won, right? Like the end of history, all that stuff, yeah. Like the liberal argument. And it seems to me that wasn't unique. It wasn't universally true. Like not everybody has bought into this thesis that you got there.
No, it's certain. That was not my thesis. I keep hammering away that most people don't even live in a democracy. Like that the idea that I think some people misinterpret Fukuyama. I don't want to defend him, but like, obviously, I don't think he was saying democracy is the solution for everybody right now. When he was writing that, the Soviet Union was still like in a transition phase out, right? So we didn't know what was going to happen next, right? So clearly, we're not at the end of, there is no such thing as the end of history. And most people don't have the benefits.
It was a fun title though for an article.
It was a fun title, but no one, again, we've stagnated. I mean, look, in Philippines, Bangladesh, and Turkey, that's like almost 500 million people. They've gone backwards in civil liberties. And Thailand, if you add the 4 countries together, it's 500 million people that have gone backwards in the last decade in terms of freedom.
I was just trying to understand, because so you're not saying just because you think morally there are certain things that most people want and actually ideally want to live under, doesn't mean that it's all marching in that direction.
No, certainly not.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Eastern Europe, these are anti-democratic forces. The forces in Hungary and Poland are anti-democratic. They're against the free press. They want to persecute minorities. They want to consolidate and centralize power. These are authoritarian forces. These are not liberal forces. These are not democratic forces. They might be populist forces. I think it's extremely important to separate populism from democracy. Hugo Chavez was a populist. He was also a dictator. You can try to be nationalistic and jingoistic, but that doesn't mean you are respecting rule of the people. In reality, Chavez was creating a little empire for himself where he and his family lavished at the expense of the people. So I think it's quite important to take pains to differentiate these things. I think politically speaking, it is very difficult for societies to become more open. It's a real struggle, and it is a celebration when any society does do this. It's an incredible moment. I mean, when the Sudanese got rid of Bashir 2 years ago, I mean, that was an incredible moment. Now, it is not, they continue to struggle, but those are incredible moments that deserve to be celebrated. But generally speaking, there's a lot of inertia with the establishment. They're very difficult to get rid of. And I guess what I'm saying is technology has an interesting effect on this. Were it not for cryptography, and were it not for the ability of open source code that the cypherpunks pushed forward, I would have a very dark view of the world today, because most technology strengthens the establishment, strengthens authoritarianism. We talk about big data analysis, AI, all these things. These things are highly centralizing, and they will permit more social engineering and control. So that's kind of like a very scary arc that we're on. And, thankfully we have some tools to fight back, and I'm excited about those. But the general trend is for the establishment to get stronger and more kind of entrenched, which is scary.